Welcome to Nourishing the Mother, where inspired women talk about the journey of motherhood through the common thread of parenting, relationship, and sexuality as a path to consciousness. We ask, in what ways can we show up more fully, live more meaningfully, parent more wholly, and love more unconditionally? How can we mine the wisdom from the experiences of our lives and expand into those challenges? If you are here, you care about paving a path of conscious and intentional motherhood, connected with yourself and your gifts, and also illuminating your children in theirs, so we may raise more whole humans who can impact this world in a more humane way. And if you feel like giving a little back to this free content, please become a patron of the show and receive extra member benefits for less than a coffee a month. Or you can leave a review on iTunes and Facebook, all of which helps the podcast keep going and reach more mamas who need this type of tonic for the soul. Head on over to patreon.com/NTM podcast to find out more. We are Julie Tenner and Bridget Wood, and we are so grateful you're here.
Hello and welcome to Nourishing the Mother. I'm Bridget Wood.
And I'm Julie Tenner. And today's podcast is celebrating the whole woman in our daughters' journeys. So it will revolve around the story. Centrally, I just ran my own daughter's new moon ceremony, so a collective celebration of the transition from maiden to, well, it's still maiden, isn't it? But a journey of evolution in the transition to womanhood, and you know what that looked like, what that entailed. I guess the gems of rawness that I got out of it. But it's kind of a bigger topic than that, because as you know, we can only show up for our children as much as we're willing to show up for ourselves. And often our pain is what's taken us there. So we kind of want to expand that conversation.
Yeah, so talk about it beyond, you know, your daughter's perhaps coming of age, to look at our experiences and our voids that have led us to value this, and also what we do even with our toddlers around, you know, in keeping intact this whole woman that's at the essence of who they are, right?
So before we jump into that, we'd love to remind you to jump onto nourishingthemother.com.au and scroll on down on the homepage to the red bar where you can click and join our tribe with your email. And once a fortnight, we send you an email that has all the links and titles to everything we've put out in the world, and you can pick and choose where you'd love to dive deeper. So please join us at nourishingthemother.com.au and come join our awesome tribe. Okay, Bridge.
So I think that we might begin it, I guess, with a little bit of a debrief, maybe, because I haven't heard anything yet from you on how it all went down with your daughter's ceremony. And I saw you like for weeks and months planning it.
Fucking God, I actually feel it feels like a lifetime for me, and I don't know why. Oh, hello, baby. There you go. She's joining the conversation.
Yeah.
I say she.
We just
Who
said
knows?
she.
Who knows?
We'll see.
Yeah. Sorry, back on track. Yeah, it does feel like a lifetime. And I think it's because, as you and I have discussed often, we had such a void on it that in the back of my mind, it's always been a conversation I've had with myself.
Yeah.
How am I going to do this? What will it look like? And to some extent, I've been searching the world over the last 10 years going, where's my place? Where's my entry point? Who will I go to? And ultimately what ended up happening was I looked around and look, there were a couple of options, but none of them really hit home to where I wanted to go with her. And so when it ain't around, you create it. Right?
Totally.
So that's what I did. So I feel like I've spent the last year really, when I started talking to my daughter's friends and my friends that I have in circle with me about it, was, okay, I want to do this. Who's with me? And I had a rallying of women that said, yes, we want to do that. And I thought, okay, well, they're here. So now I've just got to create it. And I have been pulling together I can't even explain to you. Like, I feel like I have been in such a creative furor, and my mind, it feels like it's whirring all of the time as I'm thinking and processing. What am I bringing into it? How am I saying it? What stories am I telling? What am I pulling out of it? What do I want them to walk out of it with? What do I want these women to journey? What do I feel deeply called to let these maidens know? You know, and just pulling together every part of my own journey and experience and books and wisdom outside of me that I could possibly. And so it's been this massive gathering process, as any big research project is. And the culmination of that was yesterday. So I was actually really nervous because I wanted this to be something incredible. And if it wasn't, what did that mean?
Yeah.
So I was facing a lot of my own identity, and I had to keep reminding myself that it's a lot like birth. Whoever needs to be there will be there, and they will take out of the experience whatever they need to take out of the experience. And in the end, funnily enough, that was reflected in the women that were in the group. So I kind of created this private group to begin pulling it together. And I had women pull out, and I found that really painful. And then I kept reflecting on the so many blessing ways that I've run, and that always happens.
Yeah.
Because there's women that just can't be at that ceremony because on a very deep soul, collective consciousness level, they know what it will call them into. And some women are not ready for that yet. And I always tell my Blessing Way clients this. You can have all your besties and you have this heart connection with them and you desperately want them there and you just love them so much and expect that they won't be there. Don't be heartbroken when on the day they say, I'm really sorry, my baby's sick and I can't come, or whatever. Because it doesn't matter what the reason is and whether you think it's valued or not. It's still either they can be there and show up or they just can't.
Yeah.
And that's got nothing to do with you. So I was parenting myself through that.
And having to face that very real, you know.
And my ego. I had to face, they don't like me. They don't value what I value. That, you know, I don't fit in. What am I doing? Is it even worth it? You know, I had to constantly, which is all perfect as well, to be able to show up, hold space and run ceremony, you have to kind of shed your own shit, right, to be able to be there.
And do the work, right? Do the very work that you're asking other people to do.
Exactly. So I feel like also the last 2 months has been a really intense emotional journey for me as I've got closer and closer to this D-date. And, you know, people have dropped off along the way. And so I ended up with this group of 6 daughters and 6 mothers. And I thought, okay, this is perfect. And I was to some extent surprised about who was there and who wasn't there. They weren't necessarily who I expected. And I thought, wow, okay, this is also great because this is challenging my paradigm and I don't know what's coming up in this circle and even really why some people are there. And I was excited to see what that was. Anyway, so I had come early and my daughter and I had been talking about it all week. And
how's she feeling about it in the lead up to it?
Really excited. I was very cautious of that actually because these are her friends who were pulling out.
Yeah.
And so I was really conscious of checking in with her about how she was going with that. But she was really excited. She really wanted to be there. Even if she didn't really get it, she really wanted to be there. And I also notice that the women who ended up being there are the majority of women who have sat in circle with me once or many times. And our daughters watch us go to circle. And I think about the tribal, epigenetics of that, a cellular memory of being in a tribe of women who would disappear into a red tent or whatever structure you want to call it to do women's business. And as the little girl growing up playing around your mother's feet and you weren't allowed in that space, you would be curious. You'd be listening on the outside of the tent as you got older. You know, you might start little not caring. maybe not even noticing, but, oh, hey, mum goes circle and she doesn't, and this is what happens here and there. And then you start to get a little bit older. So you go, what are they doing in there? What is that cackling and laughter I can hear? And what is that moaning and sadness I can hear? What is that? And then they get a little bit older and they might want to peek in and look through and see if they can have a little peek about what it is that these women do, because it's so mysterious and they all walk out differently. And I think this is also the experience of going to circle.
Yeah.
Because our children see it.
Yeah, Hugo's like, why can't I come? I want to come.
Yeah, right?
Because there's something enchanting about it.
Exactly. So my daughter sees me do this and there's something in her that wants to know and wants to be initiated and wants to be there. And so I was really impressed actually with how she journeyed that. She was really able to just let that go, that her friends just weren't going. And that was,
it was
okay.
valuable enough for her to not be buying to where they were at.
She was really cool to just be like, oh, okay, you know, all right, that's sad, but that's okay because I really want to go. And so her and I had been talking about it all week. She had decided the week before that she wanted to have her hair. She's kind of getting into this whole boho kind of look, and she wanted these Dutch braids, I think they're called. And I was like, oh my God, I don't even know how to do that. So we'd spent all week Pinteresting, YouTubing clips.
How to
braid her hair. And we'd had practice trials and we'd talked about what flowers we were going to get to make her crown. And she was like, she'd see me bringing these various, as I'm pulling it together, these various ceremony art. She's like, what's that? What's that? And I'm like, you can't even look at this. Pretend it's not here. So, the suspense is building there. What's this going to be? She knows it's in a teepee. She hasn't seen the teepee. Like
so
the whole
cool.
thing is just really exciting and interesting. And she loves flower crowns, so she was excited to be doing that. And we got to my friend's house and we'd made her and I had made wreaths together with her little sister too. And so we were hanging the wreaths around and setting up the different spaces, and we'd brought fairy lights to cover the inside of the teepee and mandala rugs. And, so we would her and I set up the ceremony space, and my beautiful friend whose house it was, her and her son walked us down to the wetlands and smudged both of us. And
gorgeous.
It was just really beautiful.
Yeah.
And then everybody started arriving. And so we sat down and the daughters made corsages for the mums, and the mums made flower crowns for the daughters. And I had actually one friend who ended up having surgery, so she couldn't be at the ceremony, but her daughter desperately wanted to be. So she actually asked her mother, so this daughter's grandmother, to be there. So we had 5 mothers and 1 grandmother, which I thought was actually incredibly special.
Yeah.
So we kind of did that, and there was, I was very conscious of bringing in the reverence for their body. So I created kind of a stepping series of rituals of almost being dressed in regalia, I suppose. So there's, the crown, and then there was kind of a procession, and I asked each mother to wash her daughter's feet, and then she walked through gold glitter, and, I had this process, and then we came into circle and we had certain rituals that were about informing her and telling her stories and covering her in gold. And so she felt like a goddess before we even opened ceremony. And then I had a series of rituals designed over the course of really what ended up being 4 hours, but it disappears, like you don't even realize, that were about sitting in the collective shared wisdom that was in that group, what Menarche experiences were, what these girls wanted theirs to be, and stories from the heart of their own mother's wisdom and journey of them and of their own experiences that they wanted to share. And we shared stories of adolescence and stories of learning and stories of love. And it was just profound. Like we were all, I do think this is my gift. I say this because everyone laughs at me, but I have a gift of making women connect to and open their hearts in a way that they have such a wave of awe and emotion that all they can do is weep. And I feel like if I've created a space in which you can weep and connect to your heart, I've done my job. Once your heart is open and you're connected, you'll know what to do with the rest of it. And so I trust that as a process. So I take my role very consciously of being able to walk women from many different backgrounds and abilities to that place. So I had 12 women, 6 maidens, and 6 or 5 mothers and one crone, right, which is beautiful. And every single one of us wept. And it was just like
how divine.
And we were all weeping at hearing other women's stories. And, you know, there's something about hearing such a raw, honest, deep truth because it rings so true in your own body. And so you connect to that and you weep for your experience of that, you know? And I loved that every single woman there, you know, the letter that she wrote, I asked each mother to write their daughter a letter. And towards the end of the ceremony, we kind of did, actually the other thing I did, which actually I think was great, and I would spend more time there another time, was I did the big Menarche talk, but beyond the biology of what they will get in school, this was what I had learned of women and their bodies and their cycles and their cyclical seasonal nature and the phases of the moon that are reflected in the phases of their body and how they can flow with that. And we talked about their anatomy, and I talked very much in depth about their clitoris and, you know, had diagrams and pictures, and the mothers there didn't know how large their clitoral organ was. They didn't know. Like, I just think, what?
How do we
fucking like the patriarchy.
Yeah, I know, right?
Don't even know the one organ in our body that is totally and utterly dedicated to our pleasure. We're not even educated about it. Like,
it's just a travesty, really, isn't it?
that's the perfect word. Like, it makes me so angry that we are withheld from our power. Anyway, so I did that talk, which was great, and I brought actually different implements with me that you can use for what do you do with the blood beyond your disposable pads and tampons. Like, what are your other options?
Yeah.
So we talked about all of those, and largely most of the mums didn't know there were other options
Like cups
either.
and things like that.
Yeah. And we talked, you know, just culturally about what different cultures do with their blood. And, you know, it was a really beautiful opportunity to give deeper insight into our body than what we're going to get anywhere else.
Yeah.
And that was what I was going to say before, we wrote letters to our daughter. And as I was listening to each mother's letter and weeping along with her, I was just thinking how perfect this is, because there really wasn't a single letter there that overlapped. Wow. So these daughters get to hear the stories and the wisdom from 6 different perspectives, 6 different slices of this world.
Like 6 different aunties, you know, like their mother and then their aunties.
Exactly. And you can hear everybody's voids and pain because the advice that they wanted their daughter to have is based on what they didn't have. And I loved that. I loved listening to the pain that fueled the wisdom.
Yeah.
Like, that shit just blows my mind.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It is, like, incredible. It's incredible.
Just keeps showing up.
Yeah. And, you know, we had a few other rituals, and at the end I'd asked each mother to bring a jewellery item to gift their daughter as signifying the celebration and the specialness of this moment. And so they all brought necklaces, and largely they all were reflective of the moon. And so we had a ritual where we all gifted, individually walking through a blessing kind of procession, I suppose, gifted our daughter this necklace or this item of jewellery with an explanation. And we'd all brought an offering for each of the daughters that was reflective of something we wanted them to have and take with them. And that was beautiful because every mother had brought something that really they wanted our collective daughters to have. And it felt so held. And then I listened to these daughters at the end reflect on what they had taken from today, and It was gorgeous. Like,
talk about life altering.
Oh, it was literally that, right? They weep with the amount of love they have around them that they didn't know. And how loved and adored they are that they didn't really know. And to hear other women's stories of being, you know, a misfit or, you know, trying to work out who you are in love and life and traversing just teenagehood and seeing and hearing themselves in those stories and going, oh, I'm okay, was just so beautiful. I can't even tell you. And then I also asked all of the mothers to give their books and movies that they believe every woman should see in her lifetime. And I compiled a list of those. And they were all enormously excited to embark on the journey that is in the written word or in the movie format.
Yeah.
And I think that's powerful. And, you know, I couldn't help myself. I put like 15 books on there. I said to everyone, just give me 5. 15, and I couldn't cull it down. That had come down from like 40. So 15 books is what I put on there. And some of them, I think, these books changed my life. And same for every one of those women, right? And can you imagine reading the books that changed another woman's life and knowing, having that list? Like,
and it kind of comes with like a sense of reverence just in knowing that, like in knowing the power in them to be transformative.
Exactly. And then I received this message from one of my friends who was there today. And she has, I think, has a really big story of her own adolescence, and so is finding her daughter's journey of that challenging. And neither her nor her daughter kind of seem to know exactly where to step around each other or, you know, it's an interesting dance. And she wrote me this beautiful text, essentially just saying, I know, you know, you probably wouldn't have noticed, but that she soaked everything up. And we had the most amazing conversation on the way home. I can feel myself getting teary. And she connected why she felt like she felt at different times in her month.
Wow.
And she understood what her body was trying to communicate to her. And she has completely changed how she wants to move forwards with her own cycle in her world. And she started talking to me and we've started crying together, and it's only been a day, right? But this is profoundly different. And we create this one moment in time, and that literally alters the entire course of her daughter's life and the line after her, her daughter's daughter, and so on.
And these mothers who get to repattern their stories too,
Exactly.
like to gain the wisdom that they never got, and to sit with their inner child and their inner teenager who's still trying to fill gaps and make meaning.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it was gorgeous. So I actually thought, Bridge, if you'd indulge me, that I would read to you or to our listeners.
I would love to hear.
The letter that I wrote my daughter. And you can hear my voids through the whole thing. So please be gentle with me.
Yeah.
All right, are you ready? To my darling daughter, the moment you were born, I felt as though the divine was birthing you through me. And all I had to do was allow the bliss and joy to flow from my crown to my toes. And in this bliss, you were born, birthed into my arms, your father, brother, and grandmother watching over you. It has been nothing but a pure pleasure and honour being your mother. You have been a ray of love and light in my world. As you enter womanhood and your path takes you further away from the comfort and safety of my arms, I want you to know my heart will stretch to wherever you are, and that you always have a soft landing here with us at home. No matter your circumstance or path you have travelled, composed or dishevelled, we will love you in all your glory, just as you are, and without pretense. So please come home whenever you need a reminder of just how extraordinary and capable you are. There are a few truths I want you to know and come back to for the rest of your life. So I will try my best to leave them here, written for you. 1. You are a woman. You have a direct link to the goddess. She lives within you, and because of this, you are a goddess. Know your sovereign self deep inside as your core being. Honour her as you move in the world. Act with integrity as the queen or warrior woman would. And if it is not in integrity with your sovereign core, don't do it.
Don't do it. It's a hard lesson.
Your body is the temple that for this lifetime is home to your spirit. It is your goddess temple. Treat it as such. Adorn it with reverence and an expression of your inner light. Your body will always whisper truths to you. Listen. Learn to understand your body and read her signals. She is never wrong, so don't let your mind second guess her. You can control, guide, and inspire how you feel through movement. When in a funk, come back to your body, come back to sensation, come back to the present moment, and get out of a funk by getting funky with a great beat. She giggled at that one too. You are a cyclical being within a cyclical world. Everything has its seasons and cycles, from your life to your body to your feelings. Be willing to flow with your cycles, even if the masculine world around you says it's ridiculous, frivolous, or can't be done. Your cycle will only feel like a limitation if you have no limits. Know your boundaries. Honour your need for deep rest. Treat the call to go within as sacred. It is a path to your inner knowing, to your awakening, to amplifying your impact on this world. Don't be fooled into believing otherwise.
We're just interrupting Julie's letter to her daughter to let you know that we have our own TP circle opening up for a one-time only retreat for 2019, which is Sunday the 7th of April in Bayside, Melbourne. So if you feel called to join us and snap up one of those last spots, we'd love to have you. Head to nourishingthemother.com.au to find out more.
Grief is not a place to stay. It is a passageway through to knowing something more deeply. Don't wish it were easier. Allow yourself to be moulded into something stronger and more beautiful. What you are passionate about, what you desire, is not random. It is important in your unfolding. Give yourself permission, time, and space to follow it. Resistance always shows up in our life, from not finding the time to legitimate pain and limiting beliefs. Taking risks is uncomfortable, but what we resist holds the key to our next evolution, to more freedom. So be your own warrior, knowing you have deep roots that sustain you, and enter that which you want to resist. Instead of asking what type of guy or girl you want, ask yourself, what do you want to feel? What type of experiences do you want to have? And make that list instead. When you're in relationship and you want to blame outwards, ask yourself, have I been impeccable in showing up with my whole heart? It is here you will meet real love and know what you are worthy of, so don't run from it. If you experience hurt, choose to open still. Pain is a gateway to wisdom. Don't look for a partner to complete you. You are already whole. Look for a partner to amplify you. Life often doesn't look like you thought it would or should. Let go of the illusion of control and let this experience flow through your heart. It too has purpose. Cultivate your feminine and learn to conduct love through your body, staying open, walking, dancing, moving. If it feels good, you're on the right path. The feminine experiences love through pleasure, so develop your pleasure. Your full presence will be deeply nourishing to anyone you choose to focus on when you are willing to fill up in this way. Pleasure is your birthright. Approach all your experiences with this knowledge to learn what pleasure is for you. To follow your sexual awakening, follow your pleasure. Use your voice. Give yourself permission to ask for what you need. And if you don't know, find out on your own first. Your primary sexual relationship is with yourself. Everything else is secondary from there. Touch, look, play, write your fantasies, figure out what turns you on with your own experiments. Explore your sexuality on your terms. Your clitoris is not hard to find. Find it. Explore it. Tell your lovers about it. Look at your vulva. Look and feel your vagina. It's not gross. Don't listen to any stupid boy stories about vaginas. They all wish they knew what they say they do. Your vagina looks, smells, and feels 100% normal. Pee after sex. Sex can be a pathway to God. There is no right or wrong way to do sex, and it doesn't just come naturally. It is a skill and an understanding that requires learning. Seek beyond magazines, social media, and movies. The key to eroticism is not how it looks, it is the courage to be present and feel and communicate. Allowing someone to enter your body is no small thing. You take parts of them into you, their body, their heart, their soul, their pain, their whole body ecology. And this has the potential to alter how you feel within yourself. Choose wisely, and only choose those worthy of such an honour and who honour you in the process. You don't need a man to access your sexuality. It isn't activated by a man's touch. Please explore yourself. Explore your own and others' explorations of sex, the good and the ill-fitting. Sex doesn't have to be serious all the time. You can say no. You can say no even if it makes them mad, if they call you names or threaten to break up with you. You can say no mid-act, after you've said yes, if it hurts, and it never should, if you're feeling comfortable, undervalued, or unsafe. And in the end, take the pressure off. Actually, nobody really cares what you do or who you are. They're all far too busy with themselves. I promise. I love you beyond the moon and farther than any star we can see. You are made of stars, my love. And you can fly even when you feel like you don't know how. Honour your heart, your body, and your soul, the way your father and I do, and you can't go wrong. We wish you blessings and immense joy as you explore this world and who you are within it. It's a pretty incredible place to be. All my love, Mum.
It's so beautiful. I've sat here with tears just running down my face listening to that.
I'm so glad.
It's gorgeous.
I was a mess. I cried my way through the whole thing.
Trying to read it.
I couldn't even read it.
I can so imagine.
I couldn't even read it. And, you know, my daughter is 11, turning 12 this year, and I know that she's nowhere near ready for sex.
Yeah.
But if I thought about if tomorrow I were to die, which is entirely possible, what would I want my daughter to know? What would I want to leave her with that is my legacy beyond my physical body?
Mm.
And that's what I took into writing my letter, was not where you're at right now, but where I know you will travel to.
Yeah.
And what I want you to have the keys to that I never did. And I wasn't sure how that would go when I read that to her. But I realized as I was coaching all these mums in writing their letters, was I said to them, you have to remember that what you think your daughter is ready for or not is not her.
Mm.
That's you.
Mm.
And our daughters are the most magnificent sieves. And whatever they need right now, they're going to hold on to. And whatever they don't, they're not going to hear or understand anyway. And it's just going to sift on through. And that's why I made these books, so that they would go home with the collective wisdom. And they have it for a lifetime.
They'll come back to it just the right time.
Exactly. They know that in those letters written from 6 different women, as well as what I've added to it, that whenever there's a rough patch, they will find themselves in there. Mm. And that for me was always the purpose in that. So interestingly enough, as I was reading all of that, it felt really natural and easeful. And my daughter was, you know, had tears running down her face when I'm telling her expressions of love. And she just listened otherwise. And I could see that there were other mums there who said, oh, you know, I didn't even know what to say. And there are all ears in your letter, everything I would want my daughter to know. And every entryway into a conversation that I didn't know how to have.
Mm.
And, you know, there's the maidens that were at this circle were, my daughter was the youngest at 11 and they went up to 15. And so there were girls who were there.
Yeah.
And they take something completely different out of that. So I feel tired today. I think it feels like I've got over, you know, kind of been this furor surging this path to create this experience. And I kind of feel like now I'm like, oh, I can rest now.
I need to curl up in the fetal position and just let it all soak in.
Yeah. But, you know, I have these beautiful messages sort of coming every now and then from these women and the experiences they're having post-ceremony with their daughters. And it makes me want to weep all of the time, honestly, when I think about the impact that this one thing that seems so incremental and almost not worth it, you know.
But yet you know
it's life-changing.
Because you look back at your own story and you realise that some of the most pivotal points in which we gained wisdom was when someone opened their heart like that, you know, or someone saw us in a way that we needed to be seen and gave us the keys. That's what we've done.
So that's what I'm sitting with at the moment. So a couple of the mums have said, you know, blah, 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 all this, you know, this is what they got out of it. I'm so profoundly grateful. And, you know, but now they want a women's circle.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I don't know if I was ready for that. But I'm sitting with that because, you know, they do.
The ones who aren't
our maidens need a circle.
Oh, the girls want a circle.
They want a circle because they've had this insight into what the sisterhood is, right? What deep, authentic love and self-exploration is. And, you know, we can forget our dreams on our own. And yet to have another woman who believes in us fan those flames makes them entirely possible. And enough of the patriarchal bullshit that pegs women against each other and shows us women fighting over men and over beauty.
Or says this is your track and you got to keep on that track.
And women are our competition. And enough of that. That is such a story to keep us so separate, because when we're together, we're more powerful, individually and collectively. So let's just peg you all against each other. And we'll tame the power.
And you can have a cat fight over there while we just take over the world.
Yeah, exactly.
maintain our
and it keeps you isolated, right?
Yeah.
Enough. The sisterhood that sees you and fuels your dreams and gives you a place to put all the stuff you don't understand and assimilate it in such a way that you have a heart and body connection to it. It's fucking powerful.
A place to have permission to be held and heard and entertain those whispers and yearnings that might seem frivolous in any other place. But that held space.
So where do you want to go from here?
I think it's worthwhile. I mean, and I'm interested to know how, I suppose, because I'm reflecting on my own growth into my body, and as I descend into my third birth, and how much more I know I've expanded into reverence for my body and for all of it, right? And for being with the stretching that birth requires of us, and the letting go and the surrender and the, feeling, right? And so I'm consciously taking my children, but particularly my daughter, since I did a lot of talk around birth with Hugo when I was pregnant with Sylvie, and just normalizing our bodies and normalizing the power in our bodies and our relationship with experiencing the pleasure and the joy and the reverence for every part of it. And I thought, gosh, it's taken me into my 30s to feel in a really comfortable place with all of that.
Oh, I love the 30s. Yeah, too.
And yet, what if, what's my daughter's experience going to be if she has me as her mother comfortable in her body and comfortable with talking about her body and being and my body being witnessed by her, and me talking about her body, how does that,
with respect
and with honoring, right? And how that imprints her.
Of course it does. I think that is life-changing.
Because we know how much we've been imprinted by our own mothers, and they I think we all do as the best we can, right? And I was having a chat with my mum, talking about how you're running this ceremony for Jade, and so I said to my mum again, I said, it made me think about when I first got my period and how much you really tried to do to celebrate that. And Mum had said, look, I did because I wanted it to be different to what it was like for me, right?
Pain and value.
Yeah. But isn't that what we're all trying to do?
Exactly.
You and every mother in that space all wanted something more for their daughters.
Exactly.
And every generation we're calling ourselves forward to become more whole, to make more parts safe, to make more of us okay.
Yeah, exactly.
To create greater reverence for what is our right when we are born.
Because we're already whole.
But yet we are cultured to forget.
To fraction ourselves. To be in competition with various parts. Right?
Yeah. And there's just so much power and awe in that, I think. Yeah. When we can sit with, not just the impact that you've had on Jade and her friends and these mothers, but the impact that you've had on your other daughters just by them being the orbit of this?
Oh, actually, you've just reminded me. So we have this, do you have a school app where they send you, like, sometimes during the day, like photos and different things that the kids are doing during the day? We have one, it's called Seesaw. And my prep starter daughter, her teacher sent a photo through today of some of Lola's work, and she's standing there holding this beautiful 2-page spread drawing with the most gorgeous colours, and her attempt at, you know, trying to write, and then the teacher's written underneath what she's said.
Yeah.
Do you know what her entire 2-page spread was?
What was it?
All about her weekend. My mother went to Women's Circle with my sister Jade.
Oh, that's so gorgeous.
And I just, like, I nearly cried looking at it, and I was just like, they see, right? This is what you're talking about, Bridge, is I've made this one step with my daughter, but it is witnessed and felt by my other daughters.
And your son.
Totally, by my son as well. And so this little 5-year-old girl is looking at her big sister becoming a woman going, when do I get to go to the tent? When do I get to do that? When's my turn? And already we've changed the language of what it is to be a woman. It's not a curse. It's a blessing.
Yeah.
And we celebrate that. So, you know, I would love to share our Menarche stories, I think, just as a highlight of that.
Yeah.
Because I have the opposite experience to you, which I think is perfect.
Well, it's fueled this, right?
Exactly. Exactly. So I would love to hear your story. I actually really would. But I wonder if we just get mine out of the way first.
Yeah, let's have it.
So my Menarche story, Menarche being the word that describes your first bleed.
Yeah.
I was the last of all of my friends. I was 14 when I got my first period. And I had been waiting and waiting because I felt like I was missing out. And all my friends were getting boobs and periods, and I was getting nothing, you know. And I didn't really get much at home. There wasn't really, it was just like, I'd say, you know, you had a pad and you put it in the bin, and that was probably the extent of it. I knew the biology of it, but nothing really beyond that. I didn't have a pre-prepared kit of any sort, or I don't remember any conversations with my mum, really. There was no reverence for it. All I remember is being jealous of my friends and wanting to be like them because I didn't fit in. I wanted to be where they were, and I wasn't there. And I woke up one morning and I was getting dressed, and so I'd, you know, cast off my pajamas and my undies and whatever, and they were lying on the ground, and I was getting dressed, and my mum walked in and she was like, oh my God. She goes, did you just take those off? And so I turn around, I'm like, what the heck? I turn around and there are my undies, blood-soaked, stained undies that I'd not even realised that I had had my period, that it had started, not even connected enough to my body to know what it felt like that I was maybe getting it, or that I'd even got it. Like, how disconnected is that, right? And so my mum's experience is one of shock and horror. And then her very next reflex was, well, the least you could do is clean it up. What a mess. Wow. You should be cleaning your blood, your undies, not leaving them here. That was my foray into womanhood. So I was left feeling shameful, ashamed of my blood. And I don't know, I don't know what the opposite word to reverence is. What's the opposite word to that?
Well, it kind of is shame, but also
it is shame, isn't
confusion
it?
And just...
There was just zero reverence. If I thought that this magical Cinderella experience was going to happen when I got my period and became a woman like all my friends, it was like the nightmare opposite of that. It was full of shame and kind of public humiliation and no reverence whatsoever.
Not something to be embraced, something to hide, or
you
know.
And you're messy. you clean up your own shit and you keep that tucked away.
That's painful.
Yeah, it is. But I want something different for my daughters. Took me a long road to find my body.
Yeah.
You know, I was taught disconnection and pain for my body. And not that I was specifically told that, but we're told it by watching and witnessing our own mothers.
Yeah.
And we're told it in how they respond to our bodies.
And how they respond to their own.
Exactly. So, you know, the spiraling depth of that pain in so many ways is what created my drive to find my body, find and reclaim my sexuality, find and reclaim my sovereignty, because I had felt like I was stripped of that. So, yeah, that's my story. What's yours?
Well, similar in that I was like one of the last, and I remember being really impatient, and I felt like I'd read so many books about getting your period, and I think one of them was like that Judy Blume book, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, where I think she writes letters and she talks about becoming a woman and her experience, and I wanted that so much. I don't know what I thought it meant, but there was something like mysterious about it, or something empowering about it. That I wanted a piece of. I was also incredibly like boyish in my body and straight up and down, and wanted so much to feel womanly, and that was a gateway to that in my perception. And so I can still remember it was June 1998.
Wow, that's really specific.
Yes, so I was nearly 14. And it was late. I was one of the last ones of my friends, and I think I'd almost just gotten him. I don't know what. I can't remember, you know, whether it was on my mind all the time, whether I'd kind of forgotten at that period. But I remember like where I was in my house, and I'd gone to the toilet and seen it, right? Like seen it on, you know, my undies. And I was like, Mom, like I was, you know, like so excited. And she came and like talked to me, and we were both kind of like had these excited kind of tears happening, you know, because I think we talked about it, or she'd given me, I don't think that we had heart-to-hearts about me, you know, this transition of my life, but she would kind of scaffold my learning by finding the right book that might empower me. And she might not have been comfortable to have the conversation, but she knew that it was something she wanted to gift me. So she would gift it through words, through the wisdom of others, right? And so I just remember it being a really joyful time for me in that coming of age, you know, feeling like I was on that next step of womanhood. And I remember my mum having reverence for that. I don't know what the words were that she'd said, but that she was excited for me. You know, and it never came with any kind of caution. It was just to be with, you know, just to be felt and to enjoy. And I really loved that. And I loved the process of getting it. Like it was never like something that I ever resented, I don't think. You know, like my monthly cycle. It was never something that I ever wanted to skip, even when I was on the pill for a long time. Like I enjoyed the experience of having bleed.
Wow.
And so I wonder if it was because it was always made okay, right?
It was always celebrated.
Yeah. You know? And I remember like, it was actually funny, I thought about this the other day, like my first boyfriend, he was, you know, like, God, it's a whole nother story. But, you know, like, talk about like,
I love boy stories.
But talk me the example of being set up with somebody just to basically have a boyfriend, because my story was no one's ever interested in me. All of my friends had boyfriends, you know. So it wasn't even it was like a tick box for me. Like, and anyway, like I'd obviously had my period when I was over at his house once, and he'd told me off basically because his mum was like disgusted that I'd accidentally forgot to put something in the, because I was like all wrapped up and I'd forgotten to put it in the bin. And he'd kind of said something like, oh, like, Mum, like, saw your stuff wrapped up and just want to make sure that you put in the bin. It was a first experience of disgust or shame that I'd really had an experience of, because it wasn't something that was there was any shame around in my home. But then I was at the first time kind of feeling that through that, you know. It was interesting.
Actually, you've just reminded, do you mind if I segue?
Yeah.
To counterbalance that, you just took me right then to the moment, so you had your first shame experience.
Yeah.
I just took myself to the first moment where I was with a boy and I had my first reverent experience of me having a period.
Really?
Isn't that interesting? We're always going to experience the opposite at some point, aren't we?
Yeah.
And I can remember I had met this friend of a friend, this boy, out, and I was so very into him in a very big way. But I had my period, so I was like really wanting to have sex.
Yeah.
But you don't do that when you have your period.
Yeah.
And we went back to, he had like this cool ass apartment in the city, which of course just like skyrockets your whole ranking when you're young. And he had amazing white bed sheets. Like, what boy has an amazing white bed?
Yeah.
Like, who does that? Anyway,
Yeah.
that's what I remember, this gorgeous like movie style white bed. And we were just fooling around, and I knew it wasn't really going to go anywhere because I had my period and you don't have sex on your period.
Yeah.
Was my thinking. And I remember him totally being into me, and I was like, oh, look, I can't because, you know.
It's that time of the month.
Yeah. And he was like, who cares? And he was so loving and into me and my body that I was like, wow,
Really?
I want to see myself through your eyes. This is an amazing experience. Let's do this. You know, like, how gorgeous to be offered the opportunity to see yourself differently through the eyes of someone who adores you.
So
you took me there with that story.
So his white sheets went entirely white.
Oh, his white sheets went white, and I didn't give a shit. It's like he can clean that shit in the morning. Just to counterbalance the experience I had with my mum, right?
Totally,
like, how perfect is that?
Might have taken a few years, but you came full circle.
I think that's hilarious.
Oh, that is funny.
See, I love this, that we actually connect different pieces of our story just by sharing stories.
Totally, yeah.
It's like it clinks together.
Can you expand your awareness? That was powerful. Thanks, listeners, for letting us tell our own stories.
I know, and we both just sit in our own stories.
Yeah. So, yes, this podcast was about, you know, Jade's ceremony, and but beyond that, how giving to our daughters in that way is giving to ourselves, and it's calling us on a journey together.
Yeah.
To more wholeness.
Yeah. And it's normalizing life for our daughters. It's normalizing who they are in this world just as they are. Normalizes their experiences. It gives them frames of reference for how to treat themselves, what they, in inverted commas, are allowed to expect or not. Because if you're not specifically told that, then you're probably going to do what I did, and you're going to go a lot left and a lot right. But what if you had a better frame of reference? And what if you knew you had this deeper connection and knowing with your mum, that even as she's staying there saying, you might not see my remembering, but I remember what that's like. That's a really profound moment. And to have a group of women who you feel just as safe and honoured by, that's more than mentorship. That's a sisterhood. They're aunties, right? That's who they become in that ceremony. And I would rather my daughter not be able to talk about something with me and go to one of her aunties than try and work that shit out on her own. And that's the connection we formed with that group of women and young women. And I think that is powerful. Tribe still exists. But if it's not there, you got to create it. And ceremony is one gateway into that. So please do it. Please step off the threshold and celebrate your journeys. Celebrate your journeys of the life and death cycles that we go through as women. Create a ceremony and ritual and a pause in time to go deeper than the rest of your world allows, knowing you come out the other side changed. Because we have reverence for birth, we have a blessing way. We have reverence for the changes of life, and we can have ceremony around those. We can have ceremony for the process it is to become a wife, for the process it is to become a mother, for the process it is to let go of those years of baby making and become and step into the crone. Like, you can have ceremony that celebrates those journeys of womanhood. And you can have circles that bring and weave women together and share stories that help and heal everyone in that group.
That's what's so profound about, every time entering any kind of ceremony or circle is the power of those mirrors that other women offer. And sometimes you might think there's nothing in their story for me, but yet there'll be something that lands so profoundly that it almost just connects every dot, exactly. In your own life.
Exactly. So we would love you to connect with us at nourishingthemother.com.au, Nourishing the Mother on Facebook and Instagram. Please private message us, respond to any of our social posts. We genuinely read all of them. Shoot us an email. If you have any reflections, insights, or topic suggestions, we would love to hear them.
And if you're in Melbourne, we would absolutely love to invite you to join us in our only retreat for 2019, which is on Sunday the 7th of April in Seaford in Bayside, Melbourne, and it will be in the same TP that Julie speaks so beautifully of. And we only have just a couple of spots left, so if you're really feeling that this podcast and any of our podcasts has opened up stuff for you and that you want to enter into consciously in a held space of women, we would love to do that with you.
Yes, we would. And connect with you, Bridget.
Suburbansandcastles.com. And you, Jules?
Is thepleasurenutritionist.com.
Remember to nourish the woman to rock the family.
And we'll see you next week when we continue to peel back the layers on your mothering journey. And if you want to support Nourishing the Mother and all the late nights, the early mornings, the blood, sweat and tears we pour into our art, then please go to patreon.com/NTM podcast and become our patron. As a patron, you're helping all of the cost of operating this podcast, the hosting, the editing, the transcription, helping all of that be completely covered, and joining a community who are all about honouring our journeys and continuing to open. The more support we have, the longer we can last. So become a patron. We'd love to have you. Go to patreon.com/NTM podcast. We literally couldn't do this without you. Thank you so much for listening, and please share this podcast with anyone you think it would be medicine for.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/TheWellnessCouch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives.
Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavored to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.